The morning light spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Manhattan apartment, painting golden stripes across the marble floor. I had just finished signing off on a seven-figure contract, another quiet victory that no one in my family knew about. My assistant's voice faded from the other room as I poured coffee into a white porcelain cup, the steam curling into soft shapes above the rim. The day felt like success, calm, clean, earned. Then my phone buzzed.
Mom.
For a second, I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. We hadn't spoken properly in years, not since the graduation they didn't attend. The text was short, almost casual. "Sweetheart, your sister's wedding is coming up. We're hoping you can contribute, maybe around $120,000? It would mean so much to the family." I stared at the message, the words blurring for a moment before snapping back into focus. $120,000. The same people who refused to help me pay a few hundred in college application fees now wanted six figures for a wedding dress, flowers, and champagne. My reflection in the window looked composed, tailored navy blouse, diamond studs, steady eyes, but something inside me twisted. A laugh escaped me, soft and bitter. "Funny," I murmured, setting the cup down. "How expensive love gets when it's not yours." The city moved on outside, horns and footsteps and sunlight, while I stood there, frozen between past silence and present power. And for the first time in years, I decided to answer her call. I was 17, the first time I realized dreams came with price tags. Ours was a small town in Ohio. Rows of faded houses, cracked sidewalks, and the smell of fried food drifting from the diner across the street. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my acceptance letter spread out in front of me, hands trembling, heart racing. "Boston University," I whispered, tracing the crest at the top of the page. "They accepted me. I got in." Dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "That's great, Emily," he said flatly. "But we can't afford it." Mom glanced at him, then at me. "Maybe start at community college for a year. You'll still learn something." "It's not the same," I protested. "I worked so hard. I applied for scholarships. Dad cut me off. "We don't have money for that kind of nonsense. College is expensive, and your sister's future wedding isn't going to pay for itself." The words hit like a slap. My sister's wedding. She was 15, still doodling hearts in her notebooks, and somehow her hypothetical wedding fund mattered more than my education. My throat tightened. "So you'll save for her dress, but not my degree?" Mom's eyes softened, but her voice was small. "It's just tradition, honey." That night, I sat on the porch steps with my acceptance letter in my lap, tears drying on my cheeks. The air smelled like rain and asphalt. I felt stupid for ever believing hard work was enough. Then the door creaked open, and my grandmother shuffled out, soft gray cardigan, kind eyes. She sat beside me without a word, then pressed something small into my hand, a gold pendant with a tiny engraving that read, "For the life you choose." Her voice was low, but steady. "They think they're protecting you, Emily. But they're protecting their fears, not your dreams." I looked at her, the pendant warm in my palm. "What do I do?" She smiled faintly. "You go anyway." I left 2 weeks later. No tearful goodbyes, no packed car. Just a bus ticket, a single suitcase, and a heart equal parts terrified and determined. As the bus pulled away from that quiet street, I held the pendant tight against my chest and whispered, "For the life I choose." That night, for the first time, freedom and fear shared the same seat beside me. Boston was colder than I'd imagined, both the weather and the reality. The first few months were a blur of part-time jobs, sleepless nights, and cheap instant noodles eaten on park benches. I worked mornings at a coffee shop, evenings at a bookstore, and studied during every stolen hour in between. Rent was a monster I fought monthly, but somehow I always found a way to win. Community college wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every class, every paper, every late-night study session felt like proof that I was rewriting the script they handed me. Some nights, I'd take out my grandmother's pendant and whisper her words like a prayer, "For the life you choose." It was in my second year that I met Margaret Hale, a guest lecturer who ran her own marketing firm. She was sharp, witty, and everything I wanted to become, confident without apology. After class one day, she stopped me as I was gathering my notes. "You've got a head for strategy," she said, tilting her glasses down. "Have you ever thought about working in brand development?" I laughed softly. "I've thought about eating more than once a day. That's a start." Her lips curved into a grin. "Then let's fix that first." Margaret offered me a paid internship, barely above minimum wage, but to me, it felt like a fortune. She taught me everything she knew: how to pitch an idea, how to read a client's silence, how to turn rejection into leverage. She was tough, but fair, and she believed in me when no one else had. Those years hardened me and shaped me at the same time. I learned to stay quiet about my success. While others posted every small win online, I kept mine private. My parents still thought I was getting by, working some low-level office job. I didn't correct them. Letting them underestimate me became my quiet revenge. After graduation, I followed Margaret to New York. The city swallowed me whole and spit me out stronger. I started as an assistant, then a strategist, and finally, after one too many nights of crying in conference rooms and missing meals over deadlines, I launched my own marketing agency, E. James & Company. At first, I worked from a tiny studio apartment, laptop propped on stacked textbooks. Then came the clients, small brands, startups, people like me who just needed one believer. Within 3 years, we were handling national campaigns. By 5 Fortune 500 companies. Still, I told no one. When my mother called, I kept the conversation light. "Yes, Mom, I'm doing fine." "No, I don't need anything." Success, I learned, didn't need applause to be real. One night, after signing my first $1 million deal, I sat by my apartment window overlooking the city lights. I held my grandmother's pendant again, feeling the engraving beneath my thumb. "For the life you choose," I whispered. And I realized I'd finally built it, piece by piece, all on my own. 2 weeks after my mother's message, I flew back to Ohio for the first time in nearly a decade. The small town looked exactly as I'd left it. Same rusted stop signs, same faded paint on the diner walls, same tired air that once made me feel small. They wanted to meet at a restaurant, the nice one by local standards. I arrived early, not out of eagerness, but out of habit. Control is easier when you're first in the room. I chose a table near the window and waited, my leather bag resting by my chair, the same one I bought after my first major contract. When they finally walked in, it was like watching ghosts with familiar faces. My father looked older, but just as rigid. My mother's smile was nervous, and my sister, Hannah, was radiant, draped in designer labels she hadn't earned. "Emily," Mom breathed, as though saying my name out loud might break something fragile. I stood, offering a polite smile.
"Mom, Dad."
"Hannah." The small talk came first, always does. "How was the city? How was work? How was the weather up north?" They asked about everything except the past. Then Dad cleared his throat. "So, about the wedding." There it was. The real reason. Mom leaned forward, her voice sweet but practiced. "It's such a special time, sweetheart. We want Hannah's day to be perfect. The venue, the guests, everything. It's going to be beautiful. But it's expensive. And you want me to cover it." Dad gave a stiff nod. "You've done well for yourself. We thought maybe you could help, family to family." I took a slow sip of water, watching their faces. $120,000 is a lot of money. My sister shrugged, twisting her diamond bracelet. "It's not that much for you, is it? I mean, you're doing okay, right?" I smiled, the kind that hides daggers. "Define okay." She blinked. "Like stable?" I leaned back in my chair. "Stable enough to buy this restaurant twice over if I felt like it." Silence. Forks clinked at nearby tables. A baby cried somewhere behind us, but at our table, nothing. Dad's brows furrowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I began softly, "that the girl you refused to send to college now owns one of the top marketing agencies in New York. The girl you said couldn't make it without a man built everything you see on her own." Mom's lips parted, eyes wide. "Emily, you never told us. You never asked." Hannah fidgeted, glancing between us. "So you're like rich?" I almost laughed. Rich enough to write you that check without blinking, but poor enough in trust to ever do it. The words landed heavy, each one slicing through years of silence. Dad looked down, jaw tightening. You're holding a grudge. No, I said calmly. I'm holding a memory. There's a difference. The truth hung in the air, raw, unfiltered. My heart was steady, my voice even. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter asking for permission. I was the woman deciding the terms. Mom's voice broke the quiet. So you won't help us? I tilted my head. I didn't say that. I said I haven't decided yet. Their confusion flickered into unease. They were beginning to understand. This wasn't the same Emily who begged for tuition. I reached into my bag and placed a small velvet box on the table. I came here to talk about family, I said. But not in the way you think. Then I stood, smoothing my blouse. I'll let you know my answer tomorrow. In the meantime, enjoy dinner, it's on me. As I walked away, I caught my reflection in the glass door, poised, composed, unrecognizable from the girl who once left this town with nothing but a pendant and a dream. They wanted my money. What they got was my truth. The next morning, I invited them to my hotel. Not to the lobby, but to the private conference suite, all glass walls and panoramic views of the city. When they arrived, I was already there, reviewing documents on my tablet, a quiet reminder that time now belonged to me. Wow, Hannah whispered, spinning slowly as she took in the space. This is incredible. Thank you, I said simply, motioning toward the seats. Let's talk about the wedding. They all sat down, tentative, cautious. My father clasped his hands together, trying to look authoritative. We appreciate you taking the time, Emily. We know you're busy. I smiled faintly.
Busy, yes.
But not too busy to settle old debts. Dad's brows knit. Debts. I folded my hands. When I left home, you told me I was making a mistake. You said I'd come back begging. Instead, I came back building. So, if I'm going to help now, it won't be just a handout. It'll be a correction. My mother's face paled. Correction? Yes. I turned my tablet toward them, 3 digital documents neatly lined up. Each of you has one. I looked at my father first. Dad, if you want me to cover the wedding, you'll fund a scholarship at the local high school for young women who can't afford college. $5,000 a year. Name it after Grandma Ruth. He opened his mouth to argue, but I continued. Mom, I said, turning to her, you'll start therapy, not because I want to shame you, but because you've carried silence like a disease. You let it keep you from standing up for me. I want you to find your voice again. Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded faintly. Then I faced Hannah. And you want the wedding of your dreams? You'll earn it. You'll work for me 3 months part-time. Learn what it means to contribute, not just consume. Marketing assistant position. Real work, real hours, real pay. Her mouth dropped open. You're kidding. No, I said, leaning forward. I'm finally teaching you what no one taught me, that money is power, and power without effort is dangerous. The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was heavy, the sound of old dynamics cracking, giving way to something new. Dad exhaled slowly. So, those are your conditions?
Yes.
You meet them, and I'll cover the wedding. Every cent. Mom wiped her eyes. Emily, this isn't punishment, is it? I shook my head.
No.
It's growth. For all of us. For the first time, Dad didn't argue. He just stared at the documents, then at me, maybe seeing me clearly for the first time. Finally, he said quietly, we'll do it. I nodded. Good. Because family shouldn't be about who owes what. It should be about who becomes better. As they signed the papers, I felt something in me settle. Not triumph, but peace. The balance of power had shifted. Not through revenge.
Through accountability.
Months passed before I heard from them again. The wedding came and went. Small, elegant. Nothing close to the over-the-top event they'd once imagined. But somehow it was better. I didn't attend, but I watched a short video Hannah sent me afterward. She stood under a canopy of white lights, laughing, Genuine laughter, not the polished kind she used to fake for attention. For the first time, she looked like herself.
Dad kept his word.
The scholarship launched that fall, the Ruth James Women's Initiative. A simple website, a few photos, and a promise that no girl from our hometown would be told no because of money. I didn't need credit. Seeing those applications come in was enough. Mom started therapy. She sent me handwritten notes after every few sessions. Sometimes she apologized. Other times, she just shared things she was learning about fear, love, guilt, and silence. Each letter was shaky but honest, like she was rebuilding her voice one sentence at a time. And me? I kept working, kept growing, but something inside me softened. Success had once been my armor. Now, it was simply the life I'd built. One evening, I returned home to my apartment in Manhattan, exhausted after a long day. On my desk sat a small package. No return label, just a familiar handwriting scrawled across it. Inside was Grandma Ruth's pendant, polished, shining, whole. A note rested beneath it. For the life you chose, and the family you changed. I traced the engraving with my thumb, tears blurring the words. In that moment, I realized forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant owning the story, every chapter, even the painful ones. I walked to the window, city lights reflecting against the glass. Somewhere out there, a girl was still being told she couldn't do it. I hoped she'd prove them wrong, too. I smiled softly, whispering to the night. They refused to help me go to college, but years later, they learned what true education costs. Then, after a pause, the kind that holds a lifetime, I added, the best revenge isn't wealth. It's wisdom and the grace to give it away. Bottom of form,